Hello, everyone, and welcome to show 3 of Destination Yerevan, our preview of this year's Junior Eurovision Song Contest. Let's have a quick hello around the room. Hello, James.
Everyone.
John.
Hi, folks.
Maggie. Sarah.
Hi, everyone.
Bogdan. And of course,
Hi, everyone.
Me, Richard. So today we're going to preview Ukraine, Serbia, Georgia, and Italy. So starting off is Ukraine and John. Ukraine debuted back in 2006 when the contest was held in Bucharest, and they've won the contest once in 2012. Can they match that achievement, John? Let us know.
Let's see. Well, the song was called Nezliamna, I think. Apologies to any Ukrainians out there. And it's performed by Zlata Zuna, who's co-written it with Katerina Serello. Let's get the elephant out of the room, out the way. This is about that subject that's been rumbling along since February. But quite, not surprisingly, it's quite a serious song. I don't know. It's maybe a bit too serious. Jesk you expect to be like a happy, jolly thing, full of smiling kids, bright colours, that sort of thing. So just something to lift the mood, especially on a December Sunday afternoon in December. But yeah, it's a bit bluesy. It's a bit somber. It goes with the subject. And if you want to know what the lyrics are, go on to any major lyric translating website, and it'll tell you what the song's all about. It's just not the most cheerful of subjects. Having said that, she's got a pretty decent voice because she's co-written it. She's obviously got an interest in it, so it's got that going for it. My heart says I don't think this should win. My head is thinking knows. Ukraine know Eurovision, both Big S and Junior, so they've got a high base to work with already, so they don't need much to push them further up the running order, as we saw in Turin in May. Can it win? It could win. All the sentiments of that, I get everything about it. It can win, but it probably shouldn't. There we go.
Right, thank you, John. Next up is Serbia. They also debuted in Bucharest in 2006, and the best they've achieved is third placing in 2007 and 2010. James, can you let us know about this year's entry, please?
So this year, Serbia have Katerina Savic singing for them, Svet bez granica, or A World Without Borders. Now, the thing that struck me about this song on the first listen is it's a very gentle melody at the beginning. It's almost like a music box. And I was listening thinking, oh, this is a bit different. It's quite nice. It's sort of, it grabs your attention. I mean, people usually think of attention-grabbing songs as being sort of like, Måneskin, sort of very loud and in your face, but actually something very gentle can do just as well. Watching the music video, I immediately was looking at this and thinking, is a Jesk audience going to be old enough to remember the Mannequin film from the late 80s? Because it's basically the same story sort of brought for a younger generation. I mean, I think the music video works really well. It's very well done. There's sort of quite a haunting quality about it, which, for a Jesk entry is unusual, but it just works really well. Lyrically, I think it's something that a lot of young people and teenagers especially can sort of relate to. It's, oh, but Mama, I love him, I'm so in love with him, even though apparently in this music video I'm a mannequin and made of plastic, so I'm not sure how that works, but there we go. There's something that feels a bit dated about this entry, which is usually troublesome when it comes to a contest, but I think this works really, really well in this case. Katerina's vocals are brilliant. I think they suit the mood of the song perfectly. There are a lot of sort of musical bridges in there, so there aren't that many lyrics. There are sort of a lot of musical breaks, but I think they're really beautiful, work really well. There's a part where Katerina sort of just starts playing the trombone, and it sort of adds this very sort of lamenting sound to it, which, again, hearing myself describe this out loud, I'm thinking nothing about this should work. but putting it all together, it actually works really well, and I'm really quite enjoying it, which is interesting. Will it be enough to win? I'm not sure it's a winner. I think it's the kind of song that will grab people's attention. How many points that will hoover up, I'm not quite sure, but I reckon if it get enough, we could see Serbia sort of scrape into the top 10. But yeah, overall, I'm impressed. As I said, on paper, I was thinking, you know, nothing about this should work, but it really does. As a package, it works really well, and I'm really impressed.
Brilliant, thank you, James. Now we're off to Georgia next, who debuted in Rotterdam in 2007, and they are the most successful country winning at Junior Eurovision. They won in 2008, 2011 and 2016. Sarah's going to tell us about this year's entry.
Okay, well, once again, as Rich has just said, Georgia have got a reputation of doing very well in the Junior Eurovision Song Contest, and I honestly think that this year it's probably going to be no different. The song is called "I Believe," and it's by a young girl called Marianne Bigava. I hope I pronounced that right. As expected, with everything that's been happening, particularly this year, it's a peace song. And well, I think that Marianne's got a pretty decent voice. You know, she certainly belts the song out, and I like the fact that it's in both Georgian and English, because that helped to get the message of the song across to those non-Georgian speaking viewers. The only thing is, the video disturbs me a little bit, because I'm just worried about the way it's trying to depict peace. I can get the paper white doves of peace that are flying around, but what I don't get is the actual very serious looking girls and they've got in their heads what look like swimming caps, and they've got what looks like, if anybody was around in the 1970s, when you were kids in the early 70s, and you remember sort of the paper cut out dolls that you had in magazines, and you had the paper cut out clothes to go along with it as well, and this is what it quite resembles, and I'm not quite sure what the purpose is of it really. So, and I'm just concerned that if this is how they're going to stage it, that it's a little bit too serious for a junior competition. You know, as we've said before, we associate Junior Eurovision with happiness and, you know, with quite a little bit of jolliness. But I think Marianne has got a fantastic voice. I think the song is great itself. It's how she sells it on the night that I think is going to be the key as to how well Georgia do this year.
Thank you, Sarah. Now we're on to Italy, who debuted in Master in Malta in 2014 and also took victory on their debut in 2014. Bogdan, can you tell us about this year's entry, please?
Certainly. Well, if all the others entry from tonight are a bit more serious, this one isn't. Well, you can tell by the title, it's Blah, 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 and it's sung by Chanel Dilecta. As you can tell, you can guess, predict, it's a happy song, it's a dance song. It's not very challenging to begin with, vocally, I mean. However, towards the end of the song, in the video, I could hear a really long high note. And I'm extremely curious, is that going to happen live? And now she's going to carry it on, because she can't do that high note. I'm going to be highly impressed, because it sounded amazing. As I said, fun song, not very serious. You would have to clap, cheer, dance along. What you said here previously, you want to see that Eurovision. Well, Italy is giving it at Eurovision. Is enough to win? I don't think so, but it has a chance to do well. And also, personally, I'm not a big fan in the video. They're all wearing some kind of face helmets, like bubbles. I'm not really a fan of that. Okay, blah, blah, maybe in a bubble. I don't know how it works, but yeah, we shall see how it will look on the stage. That's Italy for you.
Thank you, Bogdan. And as is with tradition with Destination, do we think there's a potential winner or winners from tonight's form? John?
There could be. Ukraine, as I said earlier. They don't need to do much to win, because they've got the base there already. And yeah, the nature of the song, which means unbreakable in English, I should have mentioned earlier. It's, you know, if there are older, more mature people watching, then it might strike a chord more with them. The kids, it might just wash over the young people, but others might get it. Other than that, I could see Italy could bring a very pleasant surprise with a nice little jaunty song. Even Serbia, it's a different one to call.
James, what do you think?
I agree with John. I could see Ukraine pulling a victory in a very similar vein to how they did in Turin this year. It's interesting that we've all noted that this group of songs feel a bit more serious and adult than we'd usually expect at a Junior Eurovision Song Contest. Part of me's left wondering, you know, is that just the world that we live in now? Children are sort of becoming a bit more aware of what's going on around them that bit earlier, which, if that's true, that is a bit sad, to be honest. Yeah, I think Ukraine could potentially win if we see a similar situation to Turin. I could also see Georgia with a song about peace doing very, very well. And if I remember rightly, I think the last time the contest was in Armenia, Georgia won. Richard will probably remember that. Yeah, so yeah, it would be interesting to see if history repeats itself. Serbia and Italy, I'm not so sure. I think depending on what way the wind's blowing on that evening, you know, if we've got a lot of serious songs, then we've got blah, 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 then maybe everyone will say, yeah, actually, you know, no, we've had enough of being serious, we'll go for that one. But yeah, it's an interesting bunch of songs, but for me, I think Ukraine or Georgia.
Yep. Thank you, James. Sarah, what do you think?
I'm inclined to agree with James. I think it's going to be, out of this bunch, it's going to be either Ukraine or Georgia that's in with a chance of taking the win on the night. Mainly for the same reasons as already been said. Ukraine, obviously, they know how to do both ESC and JESC as well. They'll have a large backing from the public vote as well, I'm sure. And let's face it, I mean, after the year that they've had, and obviously that the whole world has experienced with them, that I think it's definitely going to be in with a shout there, mainly due to the fact of the nature of the song and the seriousness of it. Georgia, for similar reasons, it's a song about peace. Again, it's another very serious song, but as I say, if you've got a mixture of child audience, plus you've got adults watching as well and voting, you know, that could swing it for them. But yeah, I think that out of the group tonight, it's going to be either of those two.
Finally, Bogdan.
I tend to agree with what has been said so far, but more towards Ukraine is the right audience watching it. And even the children nowadays, I think they're more conscious about what's happening, and they've seen the news, they've heard everything, they've seen everyone who had to leave their country to other places, so they're aware now of what is happening in the world. So maybe Ukraine could win.
And for me, if I was to choose one, I'd probably choose Georgia, but I can understand why everybody's saying children understand what's going on. I think it was 2018 when there's like 4 or 5 songs that was about climate change. That obviously came after Greta Thunberg had started to do all her things. So I think children are understanding more what's around them than probably when Junior Eurovision first started, let's say. So yeah, I'm certainly thinking Georgia out of this 4. So we normally end destination on a little quick debate. So with Georgia the most successful country at Junior Eurovision, why do we think they're successful at Junior Eurovision but not at Adult Eurovision? John.
Okay. I think it's something I mentioned on previous destination recordings, that there's a market for kids' talent shows the further east in Europe you get. So not taking away, you know, nothing wrong with that. It's good. It's part of culture. And since it's a more usual thing, the further east in Europe you get, the better they are at it. That doesn't mean to say other countries are no good at it as well. It's just in the national psyche that they can do children singing, and children singing well. It's drilled in from very early. I'm sure if somewhere like Estonia were to take part, they've got this singing heritage as well, so it would suit them. That's basically it, really. They're just seasoned performers from a younger age.
Thank you, John. James, what do you think?
I agree with John. I think in that part of Europe there is sort of more of a culture of children's talent shows, so I think that's part of it. I also think it's very interesting that at JESC, Georgia tends to be sort of quite upbeat, quiet, funny, a bit wacky, over the top. So I think they just appeal to a younger audience very easily by doing that. So I think it's a bit like adult Eurovision. Certain countries just get it and run with it, and I think Georgia seems to get JESC very well. As for the adult contests, I always applaud Georgia for the fact that they try so many different things. It's very hard to pin down what a Georgian Eurovision entry is because they've just tried so many different styles of music over the years, and I think that really needs to be commended. In recent years especially, I feel like Georgia are just... I hesitate to say there's no plan, but I think where some countries are sort of very, focused, like, Bulgaria for a long time was sort of very focused on winning. Sweden can do it blindfolded. Ukraine know what they're doing. Georgia, it feels a bit more like, we'll send this because we like it. And that's it. I think if it was entering a Georgian music competition, I think they'd do very, very well. But because it's got to appeal to a wider audience, I think that's maybe where they sort of struggle a bit. We've had a few entries, especially in recent years, that are very Georgian. Like just off the top of my head, thinking 2018, 2019, sort of two songs in Georgian very soon after each other. Both brilliant. Really loved both of them. I do wonder though how the rest of Europe sort of connects to that. So yeah, condensing that very long rambling answer, I think they just get JESC. They sort of get the feel of it and know how it works. Adult Eurovision, I feel like they're still sort of working out where their level is with it.
Thank you, James. Sarah, what do you think?
I'm in agreement with what's been said so far. I think it's a case of they seem to get JESC more than they do ESC. Yeah, because I don't know whether they've got different producers or different, different people working with them, but it seems to be that those working with the junior Eurovision performers, they just seem to, and responsible for choosing the entries, they just arranging national finals, they just seem to know what to do. They just seem to sort of know what to, then they know what to choose and they sort of get that you have to target it at not just children but watching adults as well, and that there's going to be a varied audience out there. You've got to appeal to different cultures, different tastes around Europe, and they seem to get that so much more in JESC than they do in ESC, particularly over the last years. As James quite rightfully said, he said it just seems to be a case that they pick for big ESC, they pick something because it's very Georgian and they like it, but that's not to say that it's going to appeal to the rest of Europe. Whereas in ESC, it seems to be there's a lot more variety in what they're choosing, and they're actually sort of looking at targeting that wider audience outside Georgia.
Thank you.
That's me.
Dan.
I have to agree. All previous before me have hit the nail in the head, like you say. It's about the audience. If you target the audience or watching JESC and you have a song for that audience, you have the chance to win. If you target your song only for your own country or maybe for a really specific group of people that are into that genre, you won't have the same success. It's about that. It's about thinking about who's watching, who's listening, and how many people would connect to your song.
Thank you, Bogdan. For me, I've got to agree with John. Georgia and Eastern Europe, they've got a history of children's contests. For me, Georgia have used the same national selection process for the last 5 years, whereas at adult, it seems to be a mixture of internals or Georgian Idol. Next year, they're using The Voice, I believe. So one seems to weigh out the other. One is a concentrated method and the other is a bit of this and a bit of that. So I think Georgia are more focused on selection for junior and know what they're doing, whereas at adult, it's a case of this year we'll do this, this year we'll do that. And of course, with adult, it's not just a majority Eastern European competition, it's the wider competition. To be fair, when you look at when Georgia won in 08, 11 and 16, it was a majority Eastern European participation at junior level. It's only in recent years that the Western European countries have started to come back, like France, Spain and the UK. So we'll see. But thank you all for watching Show for Your Destination Yerevan. Don't forget there's Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram and EurovisionIsland.net. But for now, from all of us, it's goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, folks.